This is the voice of Castle Law, and my name is Gary Davidson, where we're here to create a life worth living, a legacy worth leaving, a career worth having, and a business worth owning. Let's focus on the business worth owning today. Today, I brought in somebody that I know a lot of you have been asking me about over the course of the last year, which is we spend so much time uh, building our legacy, creating our business, yet we spend very, very little time in protecting our assets and investing in our retirement. And how do we go about doing that? Because I know that many of you have said you've spoken to financial advisors and CPAs who don't really understand real estate investing and business owners in general, because these folks have never owned their own business. And today I brought in a good friend of mine. I just realized recently that he's sort of had a shift in his career change because he realized that there wasn't anybody serving this industry. And Ed Enright, who is somebody I've known for about 20 years, Ed was one of the most successful real estate investors in the Chicagoland area. He bought and sold hundreds and hundreds of houses. And he's now shifted his focus to focus on that protection side. So acting as a financial advisor, someone who has licenses in both securities, both has insurance licenses. He's been a small business owner. He's been a real estate investor. And I wanted to bring him in to offer you some insight on how you can preserve your legacy, because I know you're all spending a lot of time in building up your legacy, but how do we actually preserve it? So Ed, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Really appreciate your time today. What you were saying, I really appreciate everything you said. It's very kind of you and very generous. And really, I'm just here because I want to be able to help people. As you said, we're always, nose to the grindstone, trying to get everything done. I remember you're chasing down leads, you're chasing down contractors, you're chasing down mortgage brokers, and just trying to get everything done. Um, because we're always so busy, sometimes we really don't take care of the back end stuff like we really should. And, you don't have to have an MBA to do this stuff. It would definitely help. But if you surround yourself with the right types of people, that can really help you out a ton. And just like, you've got Gary who, he's your risk protection specialist. I remember I had a bad title and they froze my accounts for a month and everything turned out the way it should. But again, it's because I was smart enough to protect my risk and hire the right people to do that. The thing is, though, we're not always cognizant of what risks we actually do have. So, I just would like to take the opportunity to maybe throw some of those risks out there that you guys should be looking out for. Maybe a couple ideas. And really, at the end of the day, I just want to say, as you're building out your team, you should have a good account. You should have good attorneys. And quite frankly, you should have a good financial advisor who is going to be a fiduciary and put your needs first that you can bounce some questions off of or that can come and bring added value to your business.
You talked about something that I mention to people all the time, and really to be successful in business, you have to both minimize your risk and you have to maximize your return. So we're all so good about setting the alarm in the morning, getting up and doing the grind. I mean, for those of us who are successful, aggressive business owners, we get up and we grind every single day. Yet, one of the things that we fail to do is take the necessary steps to preserve and protect all that which we work so hard for. And quite frankly, oftentimes it's really, if you had to think about it, a little bit selfish, because I think most people would agree, generally speaking, the guys, we die first, right? So we leave behind our wives, we
Yes.
leave behind our children, and we've done very little to set things up so that when they have to deal with all the hard work and maybe perhaps the mess we've created,
Yeah.
that it's set up well for them. So that's what I understand in talking to you before we started, that your focus is now is so that people can kind of carry forward that legacy. They've done a good job of building it, but to make sure that that legacy is preserved.
And it doesn't, frankly, disappear. Have a conversation with your wife if you haven't. If you are a rental guy, ask her, hey, if I had a grabber tomorrow, are you prepared to take over my 10, 20 rental properties. If she's 100% in the business, that's great. If she isn't, maybe you should, prepare for that risk, because you may be thinking that you're leaving your wife with 10 or 20 monthly cash flowing opportunities, but in her mind, you may be leaving her with a headache that is going to be unbearable, on top of going through whatever emotional, catastrophe that she's dealing with.
So, so you mentioned that. What are some techniques or some insights that probably, you know, we've learned from our mistakes. So I'm sure,
Sure.
I've done a lot of things that were either boneheaded or failed to do something that, I've taken that forward and perhaps, I think you and I are a lot alike. Sometimes we try to do things the hard way. What are some of those techniques that you could offer that people would really need to start to think about and look at, that are probably things that they maybe either don't know
Yeah.
about or haven't taken action on?
I always want to put out first, build the team. You can't do everything yourself. Gary does not do all this by himself. Gary has wonderful paralegals, some of whom I've known for 20 years. He has assembled a team. You can't do it all by yourself. So that's number one. Number two is understand who you're getting advice from. There's this analogy that I just think is funny, and it's the difference between going to a butcher and a dietitian. If you're going to a butcher, he's gonna, you ask him what you should buy, well, he's gonna sell you what he has. If you go to a dietitian, they're gonna talk to you about your overall health and what you should be doing, not what I have to sell you. So that's something I always want to, really plant in people's heads. Listen, who are you dealing with? What is the agenda there, and who are they ultimately serving? So if you surround yourself with people who have similar interests, that you both have the same end in mind, that is what makes team players. And as far as, just even preparing yourself for some of these things, the devil's in the details, and the whole problem is it's the stuff you don't know. I know your daughter went away to college recently, and I know you're an attorney, so this is probably no news to you, but for a lot of people out there, it will be. The child you just sent off to college is an adult. If that child is hurt, they don't call you the parents anymore. That's an adult there. You have absolutely no say. If your child is comatose, you have no say. The state has a say. Where does your kid go to school? Gary and I, it's funny, our kids go to school in Louisiana. I don't want Louisiana making decisions for me.
Right.
I don't want Illinois making decisions for me either. But, so these are things that, we just don't know in life normally. So little things like that. Hey, you should have a POA for your kid before he goes off to school. Hey, if you go talk to your insurance guy about your 10 rentals and you ask him if you need more insurance, he's going to say, of course you need more insurance, because he's the butcher. Talk to a financial advisor. Do I need more insurance? Well, let's talk it out. How much do you owe on the houses? Is your wife going to be able to handle it? Do you have a business partner? Do you have a liquidation? How much is owed? And all those types of things are going to some sort of decision of where you're going to be feeling comfortable. Should you have a grabber and go down?
It's funny you mention that because um, I think what you're getting at and what some of the roles that you play now with your new career path is that the client's interest, in this case, a client that would be a client of yours, that their interest is your only interest. And you're not just serving the role as the dietitian. You're not just serving the role
The butcher,
as
it's
the
like, here,
butcher,
buy this.
where we're going to, and I get into that in my business all the time too. I have to instruct these new lawyers. We will have clients come in here every day and say, I need an LLC. And what I tell them is, we're not McDonald's, right? When the client comes in the door and says, I want an LLC, they're not saying literally, I want an LLC. What they're actually saying is, I want to minimize my risk and maximize my return. Now, that may be an LLC. It may be a subchapter S corporation. It may be a C corporation. It may be a partnership. It may be life insurance. It's not, they don't know. And so,
Right.
with your background, having been one of the most successful investors, owned hundreds of properties, you can take your experience on what you know and offer that wealth of experience and, quite frankly, a lot of the mistakes that you've
Oh,
probably made
sure. Yeah, sure.
and carry that forward to investors.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You really have to look at your life holistically. I mean, if you are doing nothing but working all the time to generate income, but you are not taking the steps to, put away that income, diversify that income. I see too many real estate investors that are not diversified enough because they understand real estate and they can touch it, and I respect all that. I 100% respect all that, and it's great when you can leverage it and somebody else is, it's rent and somebody else is paying the mortgage. I get all of that stuff, but there are things even in that world that are beyond your control. Hey, you've got rentals in Illinois. Well, Illinois is still a pretty bankrupt state. Long term, what does that mean? I think it probably means your property taxes will go up. So I'm out there telling people diversify. Why do people think you can only do one or the other? And I see that as a thing with real estate people. They're like, no, I'm a real estate person. It's like I was always taught think both. Why would you ever exclude a way to make money?
So you're talking about something that I think is really key, which is some areas where people are unsafe. So uh, over leveraging in a particular asset class
Right.
um, creates exposure.
Definitely.
You and I have had a lot of very close friends that have had over leverage, people that are a lot smarter than you and I
Yeah.
combined.
Oh, I was over leveraged in 08. I mean, I'll handily admit to that.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that. What did that do, and how did that impact you, and what did you learn from that?
I learned that I really needed to be diversified. And from that moment forward, I really did make it a mission of mine to understand and have money both in the stock market and in real estate. I mean, I was always doing real estate deals, always, always, but I was always meeting with my financial advisor too. And, you can sit here and talk about return on investment, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of real estate. I'm not. But I'm saying, hey, why not do both? Because if something doesn't happen the way you think it's going to, it's always good to have backup plan. And I always saw my stock market investments as insurance, quite frankly. That was just another revenue stream for the future. I mean, we're all out here and we've all read all the books and we all know, oh, more revenue streams, and the average millionaire has 7 revenue streams. Well, this is a way to plan a revenue stream for, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And, you know, it also has an impact, on how you want to do things. Hey, if you had a great year, I was talking to an acquaintance who's a real estate guy, and he made 50 grand more or less on a deal, and he didn't 1031 exchange it quickly enough, and he went and gave it to his broker who wasn't a fiduciary, who wasn't that involved in his life, and the guy just took it. And I asked him, I said, well, did he put it in an IRA or something to and he's like, no. I'm like, well, you're going to get a tax bill, and because this person was not working with the accountants to do the holistic view.
It's super powerful. It's funny because this state tax limit continues to fluctuate, depending on who's in office, and nobody wants to talk about politics, but depending on what party's in there and who happens to get elected and who's the president and who's the congressman. I mean, we've had all the way from, they're going to eliminate the estate tax altogether, all the way to, I guess the other extreme would be Bernie Sanders, and everything would be taxable, right? And so planning for these things, I can't tell you the number of clients that we have, business owners, huge restaurant groups, real estate investors, and literally they've spent their entire life accumulating, have a heart attack, die of natural causes, whatever the case is. Literally, the government comes in, takes more than half of everything they've earned because they did no planning.
Right.
Uh, and worse than that, oftentimes their families aren't even in a position to pay the estate tax because they own $50 million worth of real estate and they're property rich and cash poor.
Cash poor.
And then all of a sudden they're in a position where they have to fire sale things because they can't even pay the estate taxes.
You never want to be in that position. And we deal with people in that position when we're acquiring the properties. Don't become your ideal client.
Right.
I mean, do not become your ideal client.
So what was sort of the catalyst? What was the motivating factor for you to transition from being a highly successful real estate investor to going out and serving others and serving people by acting as a trusted advisor, as a fiduciary, as someone who's going to give them insight
Yeah.
on things that they didn't know, like the power of attorney. You know, it's so ironic that you mentioned that. I'm a lawyer. I didn't even consider that. Now, my wife, because she's high anxiety, she had all of these powers of attorney in place. We have
Yeah.
this. Both of our children go to Tulane, and there's actually a specific power of attorney for Louisiana with
Yeah.
all sorts of crazy language in French because it's the imperatives or
Napoleonic
something,
code, yeah.
and the Napoleonic Code, which I wouldn't even have known how to prepare it. She found one of these documents, but
Right.
you were mentioning to me, when you first walked in about this concept of creating this legacy for our children and putting money into a Roth IRA on an annual basis for our kids. A lot of our clients are about the same age as me, so they have teenage children.
Right.
What's this
Well,
concept?
Yeah, let me just throw a few things out there. These are just my observations. You again spoke about the risk, and listen, I know. My parents were immigrants. They came from Ireland, and I see that tradition. And my dad was a bricklayer, and I see that tradition again with the Poles and
Yep.
everybody. And a lot of the people who are investors in Chicago are from other countries. And you guys need to know you need to cover your asses.
Yep.
And there's things here that you just don't know about. And these are the things. And then, just working with people, a good fiduciary will bring you ideas. Ideas that I have, hey, you have teenagers, you own a company, you're an investor. If you're a buy and clip investor and you've got access to comps, MLS, teach your kids how to run comps for you. Pay them to do the work, but make sure they're doing the work and make sure you pay them and make sure you keep track of all this and keep, have a bookkeeper and an accountant keep track of this stuff. But if you pay your children, if you paid them $6,500 a year, they could take that money and put it into a Roth IRA or a Roth IRA. Wouldn't even have to open a 401k. We can just do an individual Roth. So your 16-year-old could add $6,500 for helping you out your business. You get a business deduction, and it grows for 50 years for them.
So you know what the interesting thing about this, and I think you and I share that same mindset, which is that when the analogy I used when someone comes into my office and they say they want an LLC,
Yeah.
right? Someone might come to you and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a term life insurance policy," or "I'm looking to set up a 401k," or "I'm looking for X, Y, and Z." And one of the unique things that I see about your approach is you say, "Hey, let's take 3 steps back. I can provide you with that, no doubt,
But
and
is
I'm
it the
glad
right
to.
thing?
But let's kind of just look at this holistically. I need to know a little bit more about you. I need to understand what your goals are. I need to understand where you want to be, what age you want to retire, what kind of income you're going to need when you retire to have the lifestyle that you want to have. And do your goals match up with your current financial situation? And are you doing what's necessary? And are you doing what's needed to protect things? That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, I mean, that's it at the end of the day because, you can lose things. Just to get back to why I kind of left too, real estate's an intensely personal business. And if you're a landlord, it's an intensely personal business. And, quite frankly, that can take a toll on people. And it may not be, the business that everybody's cut out for. So, I'll just kind of throw that out for some people too. But the thing about the markets and all that is that yes, you can protect yourself from certain things. It also gives you the chance to, make money in an exponential fashion. I mean, before uh, the pandemic of 20, the market had averaged 12% a year. You know, generally housing increases 4% a year, but that's a national average. Here in Chicago, it probably didn't do that much. So, the thing is, you got to look at your retirement holistically too. And there are different types of plans we can do. And that's why I have to talk to people and figure it out because, hey, if you're killing it and you're doing really well, you can take up to 50 grand off the top and put it into a 401k. If your wife is part of the business and we do a profit share, you can get over 100 grand in non-taxable income. Hey, if you made 300 grand, you can take 100 grand right off the top and not get taxed on it. So that's why it's good. You don't want to come in and say, yeah, I want an IRA. Well, do you? Or you want some investment to retire with?
Mhm.
Okay, so what's the best one?
Yeah, it's all, I think I'm no different than any other person in the world. Like when we were when we graduated from college, we took our first job and maybe, we had somebody that sold us $100,000 term policy. And then a few years later, maybe we went out and we bought a disability policy. And then we created we created a I'm gonna have to turn this phone off the next time I do this video. Um, Big Brother is listening. I think sometimes that phone reacts. So, then a couple of years go by and you set up this business. And with me, I set up a law firm and then I had real estate holdings and I set up these real estate holdings companies. And then the next thing you know, you have
An octopus.
20 different things, all totally potentially not interwoven. And for those of us who are our age, within a 10-year time frame of our age, you really need to have somebody come in and just say, okay, let's lay it all out on the table and let's see if it actually fits together. Because so often I see just this a la carte approach. That's how I did it.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as the need arises.
Right.
And, you were trying to run a business, trying to raise kids like everybody else.
And that's something that you do.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I mean, the thing is, we all have to have a difficult conversation with ourselves. And I'm very, I love to tell people we're the easiest people to fool ourselves. We can tell ourselves, oh, yeah, everything's going great. Everything, if this happens and that happens, that'll work out. It's always great to get a disinterested party to look at everything. Somebody who can say, hey, look, this is where you are on the path. This is what you're worth. This is what we're forecasting out. If you had X amount of return. And really, most people have no idea the financial path they're on. No idea. Hoping for the best. And coming to talk to somebody like me, and, again, doesn't have to be me. Talk to somebody, talk to a fiduciary though. But you come in, you talk to a fiduciary, and they will at least be able to give you some honest feedback of what your path looks like. And if it's not looking like the way you think it is, then you need to be honest with yourself and start making some changes in your personal life.
In best case and worst case scenario, I'm sure that when you and I were 26 years old, we never anticipated that our daughters would go to the most expensive college in the entire United States of America.
Right. I didn't quite budget for that either.
But
so you never know. Things pop up is my meaning there. It's like you just never know what you're going to end up spending money on. And then, I go back and I look, I'm like, okay, I can afford it. I'm not happy about it.
Right.
But I can do it and it's my kid. So, I'll throw a little logic to the wind, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So as we're wrapping up here, Ed, what's the one thing such that if someone could do it, it would make everything else that they're currently doing, whether they're an investor or whether they're a business owner, when it comes to getting their financial house in order, what's the one thing that they could do such that if they did it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary?
Talk to people who are smarter than you. And I don't mean just in general. I mean, we all have our strengths, and I'm good in some areas, and I'm not great in other areas. Do you want me to talk to you about investments? Great. You want me to do your taxes? No. So that's kind of my point here. What I keep hammering down, it's like you need help. Everybody does. You can't be an accountant, you can't be an investor, you can't be a wholesaler, you can't be a like it's just too much. You need some
Coaching.
expert coaching in different areas. And this is kind of a life coach type of thing. But if you're going to talk to somebody, talk to a fiduciary. And I'm telling you, try to talk to somebody with uh, some sort of experience in real estate because I get it. All these stock guys tend to be just stock guys and don't understand. It's like you can make money both ways, and you should. I don't understand why the stock guys are just stocks and the real estate guys are just real estate.
Yeah, it's got to be interconnected.
Yeah, why not? What's
that,
the problem?
that's super awesome.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to? It's great that you have the ability to make your own money. And I've done that, you've done it, and that's wonderful. But I see the stock market as an investment in America. It's like, you don't think America is going to be better in 20 years from now than it is now? I mean, Gary and I were 50. I mean, the last 30 years have been insane.
Mm-hmm.
The changes.
Right.
And the amount of wealth. Seattle's the third wealthiest city now. Nobody heard of Seattle when we were kids.
Right. That's unbelievable. Well, Ed, thanks so much for coming in.
No, thanks. Thanks.
You guys, we're going to have, you've seen Ed's information on the bottom of the screen. Take it down, reach out to him. I know that Ed would love to have conversations with you. He's a go-giver just like me. We focus our time on helping people with a hand up before we ask for a handout. This is about creating relationships, creating a bond, and helping others. And through helping others, you also help yourself. This is Gary Davidson. This is the Voice of Castle Law, where we're here to help you create that life worth living, legacy worth living, career worth having, and business worth owning.